Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
Time to be a Bengals
How do you
fan.
balance being a professional athlete and family obligation?
These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time?
Yeah.
Shock the world.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, joined by my co-host, Zim. Zim, what's going on, bro?
Hello, world. How is everybody doing this evening? I feel like this is round 2 of Wincinnati. We're coming in hot. I know one of the things that made us really, really popular, I feel like, is our interviews and our way to kind of get people in touch as fans with some of the moves that the Bengals are making inside the building. And I think we got some really, really, really cool insight today. I will say that.
Definitely. So we're happy to tell you guys that we have a great guest on today's show. Bengals Director of Pro Personnel, Steven Radicevic, is going to be on, and he's going to talk about how the Bengals pulled off a master class in free agency and how Joey B and his friends are coming to Red's opening day. Plus, we predict just how much heat the young quarterback will bring with the receivers getting all of this money, y'all. And then the Bengals have 2 of the young ones of the best young receivers in the game. So we're going to talk about how can they afford both, right? We got T. Higgins, we got Jamar Chase. We got to be able to afford them with this booming market, plus more. So let's get into it. All right, Zim. Stephon Diggs just signed a 4-year, $96 million extension, $70 million guaranteed. And then that follows the Devontae Adams deal, the Tyreek Hill deal, that these receivers that got some big money this offseason. What are your thoughts on that? Like, can the Bengals afford that? How can they afford to keep Uno and two in the fold?
I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing for all of these guys is there's the guarantee money, right? And that's the big number that everybody's looking at. Because with the Stephon Diggs one, we got $70 million guaranteed, 24 per. I think if you're looking at like a T. Higgins deal or whatever, it should be somewhere around there just because of his age. I know a lot of people will say, well, T. Higgins not better than Stephon Diggs. T. Higgins is young as I don't know what. So that's a big factor in his deal. And then also you're going to be asking T to like try to help you out a little bit. But at the same time, a lot of people are asking, well, why is T. Higgins up? So because he was a 2nd-round pick. Jamar Chase, they have the next 4 years the rights to because of the 5th-year option. I wanted to make that clear because I think on another show, somebody was asking me, why does Joe Burrow and T. Higgins have to get done after the end of this year? They don't have to get done, but because of where they were drafted, where T. Higgins was drafted at, it makes it so that you don't have that 5th-year option. So that's why you would attack it. But the guaranteed money is the biggest thing, the biggest obstacle that all players have been going through in the NFL for a long, long time. That's the difference between the NBA versus the NFL. And I would argue MLB as well. We're talking opening day, right? So for the Bengals' sake, in a normal, like, let me give you a picture. Say this guy was 28. Say it was 29, and he was like, you're projecting that you hope he plays the next couple of years before he gets to 30. Then guaranteed money is a big, big deal. Even the Deshaun Watson one, that's a big, big deal because that's a brand new situation. T. Higgins, as youthful as he is, his projection, he has not even hit his prime. If you were to guarantee him something like $70 million, it doesn't change the fact that the Bengals probably will already going to pay him a number similar to Stephon Diggs anyway. It's just the guaranteed money. So, like, say in a crazy situation, T. Higgins has a multitude of injuries or something like that, similar to Trey Wayne's, but imagine that being stretched out 4 years. And then they will be on the hook to pay that. And that's where the big deal, I think, that's the big talking point, I guess. And for me, the reason why I feel like the Migos are so much better than any other trio, somebody asked me again today, is because you're talking about youth and you're talking about proven success. And that's something that I stand by with those 3 receivers that are behind you in that picture that no other team in the NFL is offering. Every time they try to show you a trio, it's always they got to include a tight end, or they always got to include somebody that's 30-something years old in the trio. So by you guaranteeing the money on T. Higgins' first real contract after the 3rd year, to me, isn't a big deal. I know financially and what the Bengals usually set up their stuff for, that's not their model. But it's the way it's going to go, I think. And maybe they don't guarantee 70. Maybe they got to guarantee 40-something, and pretty much guarantee the first 2 years or something like that. I would have to get with like someone like our good friend Andre Parada to show like what a deal like that might look like. But it does impact the guaranteed money. The per year money, that was the money T. Higgins was going to get anyway based off of the Mike Williams deal and the Devontae Adams. So we already knew the money.
Yeah, for me, it's a slam dunk kind of deal. I think you just really look at the Mike Williams deal that he signed, similar situation. And this is why when you are drafted outside of the first round and in the second round, it's actually more beneficial because you're going to get paid early. You're going to get to that market early. And to me, it's a no-brainer that they keep T. Higgins in the fold. I think Chase, T, and obviously the Migos, Tyler, and Joe Burrow are actually key to this offense. You got to keep those guys going, no matter if you have to sacrifice in other places, like the great John Sheeran kind of alluded to the other day. So I think keeping them is definitely something that they can do. I don't think that it's going to be a situation where they need to panic. Obviously, you have to play Joe Burrow next season. So that's what people are kind of freaking out about because of that potential guaranteed money there. But I think you keep T in the fold. I think you keep Uno. Like you said, Uno has that 5th-year option. So that actually works to your advantage. So we're not in a situation where we have to pay both of these guys immediately. So I think that the way that this plays out, we should be good. Now, you talked about the MLB, and we're going to talk next about Joey B throwing out the first pitch, Zac Taylor and Jamar handing out the Rookie of the Year award to Jonathan India. What are your thoughts on just that? My thoughts are kind of that Cincinnati has become a football town. Like my man James Rapine said, I have to tip my hat and agree with him on that. What are your thoughts on just them, the Reds, including the Bengals in opening day?
I think it's you got a lot of people that are online, constantly saying Red sell the team and all these different things like that. I feel like it's kind of like an emergency ploy, kind of like, hey, it's almost like the equivalent of, hey, Joe Burrow, can you go talk to some of these free agents for us or whatever? Like they're trying to get Joe and company to talk to these fans that aren't so high up on the Reds. I make no mistake about it. Like, I love being at baseball games, but I have a hard time watching baseball games from home. So I don't know all the inner workings of everything. I know that they do need to free my guy Joey Votto because he deserves to go out like a king. And I just think from a marketing standpoint, it's a little bit, I wouldn't call it cheesy, but it's a little bit of a reach to to say, man, we're down bad for real. Like we're down bad.
Do you think though that Joe is coming out with a curveball? Is he gonna put something on it? Is he gonna put some heat on it, or what's Joey B doing with that?
Yeah. Only thing I could think about is, can you imagine? You see the bad pitches. And I don't know if you've ever been. I've actually been to a real major league mound. And it's a lot further than what you think. And Joe Burrow doesn't have to, he has an arm to get it there, right? But one thing I worry about is like people kind of misjudge like how far it is. That's why you see a lot of them always end up short. I did the same thing. I was at Nationals Park. I threw a pitch like from there and it fell short. And it wasn't like I couldn't get it there. It was like I didn't want to overthrow it. And I'm thinking like, well, maybe Joe doesn't want to hurt Zach. Because if y'all don't know, Zach is the catcher. Jamar Chase is not catching. I don't know if that was Jamar saying like, nah, y'all not going to embarrass me, and I dropped the pitch. Well, like why would Jamar Chase not be catching? Like, can somebody explain that to me?
I'm not sure, bro. I am not sure on that one, but it'll be interesting to see. And then he's presenting Jonathan India, who pulled up on us before at a tailgate. So he definitely supports Uday Nation. That. But we got to get into some of these mock drafts, bro, because Daniel Jeremiah, Charles Davis, and Todd McShay all have the Bengals selecting your boy, Tyler Linderbaum. What were just your thoughts on just that pick for Linderbaum being actually drafted to the Bengals?
I've been hitting him on Instagram every single day. Like, what's up, T. Lindy? Like, what you trying to do, T. Lindy? What you want to do? I don't know if y'all seen the clip. I put a clip of T. Lindy. That's why I call Tyler Linderbaum. I put the clip up of T. Lindy smashing, throwing Tristan Wirfs in a wrestling match. I don't know if y'all seen that clip yet, but he going crazy. He knocked it. A lot of people say he wasn't strong enough. He body slamming people out here. So for me, I just think that's crazy. You know what's so crazy? I'm gonna tell you even crazier. George Karlaftis or whatever, however you say his name, Karlaftis. Do you remember after the Super Bowl that was the first mock that we ever saw? And remember, me and you were like, man, like I don't know if you remember that episode. And he was the first edge, and we were like, nah, we would hate that. And then a couple of weeks later, he flew up the charts out of nowhere. When all these Georgia guys started really, really doing well, I said, well, that pushes Karlaftis back. But Linderbaum, this is the thing with Linderbaum. I think as Bengals fans, we do this every offseason. We start valuing somebody super, super high and thinking like, man, there's no way that anybody else could go, like let this guy fall. Tyler Linderbaum, he ain't going to be there. Let me tell you something about center. Teams don't value center like edge, corner, wide receiver, any of that. So if any elite talent is on the board at the same time as Tyler Linderbaum, I think a lot of people are misjudging like centers that are coming out of college that can only play center aren't as valuable to teams as a guy like a Kenyon Green, who I think is less talented, but Kenyon Green might be more appealing to a team because he's interchangeable and he can play multiple positions. If you're drafting Tyler Linderbaum, you're drafting him just to be a center. So then you got to look at the teams and say, how many teams ahead of us need a center? By my count, only 3. Those same teams need corner and edge. So if one of those guys is there, why would you not? And then the thing with Booth, as people have brought up to me, he did not test really well, and he's not elite. I mean, well, he didn't do a lot. He didn't do a lot of his testing, and he didn't run. But he's not a supreme athlete. So those are two guys that a lot of people are like, well, how could they be there? In this same mock scenario with the Linderbaum, the kid from Michigan, Ojabo, he's on there. And to me, that's a top 5, top 10 pick. If he was there, I almost say I'd rather go get Ojabo than trade up in the second and go get Linderbaum. I just think Linderbaum and guys that we like are going to be there.
Yeah, for me, I think Linderbaum is a great player. I think the film doesn't lie. Some people talk about the measurables, about his size and stuff like that. When you look at his wingspan is still pretty good. When you look at his arm length, it's decent. It's not the best, right? But it's not out of the woods for the Bengals to take a guy with his arm length. I know a lot of people talked about that. The hand size is decent as well. The only issue that I have with Linderbaum is just the amount of games, right? He's kind of been up and down in that kind of category. So from a durability standpoint, that might be my only concern. I don't know what the reasons were that he missed some of those games, but didn't play double-digit games. He only did that in one season, right? So that was the only knock that I really found on him. I think Prime has him at like a 3.38. So I think it's still a good chance that the Bengals could be attracted to someone like him. But the Bengals
He works, bro. If Linderbaum was on our team, he would make our offensive line elite. I really feel that in my heart of hearts. Like I would not be mad at that pick. I would love that pick.
No, I would love it too. I would love it as well. But on the other side, we got Pete Schrager, and he's got a mock with us pursuing the edge that you just talked about, George Karlaftis. I'm going to probably butcher his name. But Karlaftis. What are your thoughts on them going edge and specifically with him?
I'm not generalizing him because he is a white edge rusher, right? I know that's what people are thinking. But when I tell you he reminds me a lot like Sam Hubbard, but he has way more pass moves early on. So that's really, really good. But I don't consider him elite. When I look at a guy like Ojabo, like in these same mocks, Ojabo's there. And people say, well, he won't play for most of the season. I think he could probably come back if it's 6 months later, just like we just saw Cam Akers. If it's 6 months later, we're talking about 21-year-olds in their prime, like the elite athletes. If he were able to come back for an end of the season playoff push, I think that I go Ojabo because the kid Ojabo, if y'all don't know, tore his Achilles at his workout, right? he is a top 10 talent. He probably would have gone, maybe he wouldn't have gone no lower than 15. In the same mock that Peter Schrager is showing us, Linderbaum, Booth, and Ojabo are on the board, which is telling me a lot. And a lot of big major pundits are doing that same thing. And I just think it's because we're valuing a lot of guys based off of what you think the Bengals need. The Bengals need a corner and the Bengals need a left guard. And we know that Karras can move. The other, if we're really talking best player available, Ojabo is an elite athlete. He's super raw, much like Osai was, but way more skill than what Osai had at this stage in his career. Karlaftis, I'm not going to say is just some motor guy. Like, he actually has some really good pass rushing moves. I just think that the upside on him isn't what I would want from that pick, but I think he matches some of the stuff that they've done, like for second and third round talents, in my opinion. But we're all just projecting, and I wouldn't be mad at all on Karlaftis. But if the board look like what they're painting in this picture, I would be saying Ojabo. And people say, well, Jim, I mean, the dude ain't gonna play the whole year. But bro, when you're talking about elite athlete like Myles Garrett level, Aaron Donald, all that crazy stuff y'all see them doing, that's Ojabo. And yeah, he might not play most of the year, or he might not play year one at all. But remember, you still will own the rights to the 4 years of him. So you just pick it right back up in 2023, and you hit the ground running with it. You compensate for that going to free agency and going getting a veteran edge guy that you probably should have got anyway.
Right. I'm not a
for
doctor.
missing out on Karlaftis.
I'm not a doctor. I'm on the Ojabo train. The only way I feel like you should take the other prospect over Ojabo is if Ojabo's injury has some kind of long-term implications or something like that. That's the only thing that makes me look at it and say, if there's a red flag or something like that, then you don't. But I think the potential reward and the ceiling is so much higher for him over the other guy, just because, you know, taking anything out of it, like, this is a guy that was supposed to be like top 10, top 15 pick, right, before the injury. The fact that he's even in your stratosphere in a year, in a season, in a draft where you're picking at the end and you can still get a premium pick, that's the way that I look at it. Like Zim is saying, I'd take that depth. I'd let him. He could do a red shirt year. We don't need him to play this season. We got Osai coming back, but then that next season, that helps help you open up that depth that we're talking about to afford those wide receivers.
Right. You can't go wrong, bro. Like we're all like talking about like who would we rather have. Like, I mean, as we'll get closer into this draft year, we'll see guys like Daxton Hill. You'll see the kid. I see the safety from Penn State. All these guys now like moving up a lot. You know, like, I really feel like you can't go wrong with a roster like that puts a lot of people around them. Speaking of rosters, we have a very, very, very intricate part of building rosters that we were able to catch up with. We talked to earlier, our guy, none other than Steve Radicevic, director of pro personnel scouting with the Bengals, right? In this interview, we asked him some hard-hitting stuff, some really good questions, and I think a lot of answers were a lot of questions that guys and girls have been asking on the internet right now. We got a chance to go in, and here's our interview with him. We're going to recap this right after we play this.
We have a special guest today. We have Director of Pro Scouting, Steven Radicevic, with us today. Steven, how you doing today, bro?
Good. How are you guys doing? Thank you for having me on here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate you spending some time with this busy offseason, especially with it being draft season. Obviously, you kind of started off as a player at UCLA. Some people may not know that. You played offensive line, and you also played defensive line between UCLA and Cal Davis. How do you feel like your experience as a player kind of helps you with that scouting aspect of things?
I think it's helped a lot. Obviously, it helps when you're playing the game and you're around other players, NFL guys and whatnot. But obviously, playing O-line and D-line, I think helped a lot with just my transition into scouting and breaking players down, film evaluation. You know, whether you're a D lineman, you're studying the O-line tape and trying to break down their weaknesses, and if you're an O lineman, you're studying the D line tape, trying to break down their weaknesses. So from a scouting standpoint, I think that made the transition into this role, easier, especially with those positions. And then, with linebackers, DBs, I had to get more familiar with as the process went on. But definitely, it helps being able to break down O-line and D-line.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, like transitioning from, being a player and then, now the director of pro personnel. Talk to me about like your daily, like what are some of your daily tasks that people probably don't understand that are probably trying to get into the business or try to be exactly like what you're doing right now?
Yeah. I
Walk us through a day.
I think it just depends on the time of the year. If it's a season, if you're doing during the season, the game's played on Sunday. Monday, you're back in the office trying to see what injuries we had possibly had. And then say we've got an injury at corner, you're looking to see what the best corners are available on the street if we need to have a workout that next day. So Monday we've got the ready list. We're going through the ready list. Tuesday you're bringing guys in for a workout. You're trying to evaluate those guys in on a Tuesday. Then you're signing them up. Hopefully you're able to sign one of them to either the active or the 53-man roster. So really Monday and Tuesday are days that are more focused towards pro on my end. And then if I can get out on a Tuesday night, I would try to get out and maybe go to college on a Wednesday, Thursday. So really Wednesday, Thursdays were my travel days this last year. Fridays I try to make it back in the office just for whatever things we had going in before the game. If there are guys that we had to bring up to the 53 to sign, try to be in the office for the day or two before our games, and then either here for a home game or away for an away game on a Sunday. So there's obviously a lot of traveling involved, a lot of film work involved, a lot of being on the phone, calling coaches at other schools, just trying to get background on players during the season. And then on the pro end, you're trying to get background on some of these guys maybe that are on the street, just to make sure, your contacts on other teams, making sure those players are good players that you want to add to the locker room. So, it's 7 days a week during the season for sure.
Definitely. You talked about players on the streets, and obviously the Bengals have had a very great free agency period. You guys clearly had a objective that you wanted to approach with this aspect of free agency. How do you feel as an organization you guys were able to do that? We do. I think our personnel and the coaches and the ownership all do a really good job of communicating in the building. We all knew what the vision was going into this thing a couple years ago. We obviously had holes that we needed to fill in free agency and in the draft, and we knew, we tried to focus on what the strengths were going to be in the draft and what the strengths were going to be in free agency, and try to align them up. Dating back to last year, for example, like the O-line, we wanted to address the O-line in free agency. There weren't many great top level additions that we felt like we could make that year, so we focused on filling other holes in other spots. And in turn this year, we felt like there were some good interior O-line options that we could add, and we were aggressive going that route to start this year's free agency.
That me and Ace are two of your comrades that take it to the trenches online. I know you don't get a chance to go out there, but we tell people about the Frank Pollock, the Xavier Sulafield, and how the playing went sour. Is that something that some of the things that you guys had set up in that offseason that you just described, do you kind of take it as like, do you read the stuff like how we do and kind of take it a little personal? Because for me, I feel like the Bengals did have a plan. Some of the things went really, really well, and some of the things didn't. Do you ever get to this point where you're like, man, I wish everybody knew the full story on that?
There's it's hard to predict a lot of this. It's hard to predict who we're going to end up getting in free agency. It's hard to predict who we're going to end up getting in the draft. But you just hope that things align the way they will. And we were fortunate that they did. I felt like it aligned well for us this year, especially with free agency. but I think our coaches, our personnel staff, ownership, we've done a solid job of adding the right players and the right mentality, and I think it paid dividends, especially towards the end of last year.
Definitely. So one of the players that you guys honed in on, it was one of the first ones announced in free agency, was Alex Kappa. But obviously before that happened, there was like the whole announcement of Tom Brady coming back, which kind of blew up everything. Were you guys like somewhat nervous when that news broke with Tom Brady returning? Like, did that potentially take some guys that could have been options? I know me and Zim have theorized potentially Gronk said that he wanted to play with Joe Burrow. He could have come. But did you guys like panic that maybe Alex Kappa wouldn't be on the way?
No, we knew Alex was going to be a guy that we'd want to target early in free agency. But there's definitely some discussion in the building, Tom going back, or some of those O linemen and the other players around him going to go back to Tampa. But I wouldn't say there was panic. Like I said, we like the interior O line options in this free agency group, especially, and we felt confident with the plan that we had set out.
Did the Tom coming back fool anything? Because all of the traction that we heard prior to it was about Jensen. Was Jensen a person of interest before?
He was going to be a guy that we would have targeted when we could. And like I said, there was quality interior guys there that we would have focused in on the start of free agency.
Bro, he dropped some bombs there. A lot of people talked about, Jensen and Karras. Zen, what were just your thoughts on just recapping what Steven kind of dropped on us in that first part of the interview?
I feel like, this is just inside the mind of Zen. And in a way, I just marveled at the fact, I don't know if y'all caught like how me and Ace are trying to ask like some pretty hardcore questions a little bit, like directly, like, were you interested in Jensen? And I marvel at I marvel at the fact that he's really good at what he does, and he wasn't get the hell up off me, but he was just really seasoned on how to answer questions really good. And I just thought he did a really good job of like kind of getting away from like, what we kind of do like in Twitter world, and that's just kind of speculated. He did give us a direct answer though. Like they were, like, so a lot of people were doubting, I guess, like the Pac-Man, proclamation that that Alex Jensen deal was going to be done. He didn't give us insight to say the deal was going to be done, but I mean, he straight up was saying, yeah, that was a person of interest. So I like to think that I think the rollout, it would be disrespectful to Teddy Football now. Ted Karras, I call him Teddy Football. It'd be to come out now and say, yeah, we were going to bring out Jensen and Kappa as like a 1-2 punch. But, I honestly, that's the word. That's what people tell me behind the scenes, is like, that was the plan. And I think he just kind of reiterated like, yeah, that was a person of interest. And I thought that was really, really good that he gave us that info on it. So that was really cool. I like the plan so far, I love it. I honestly love it. I was in a Spaces earlier today. Somebody was asking me about like the Bengals moves. I'm like, bro, they're going to be doing this a lot, like over and over every year, getting these guys on their second contract, 26, 27, 28 years old, really good players, highly graded, and they're going to get them for low money.
Facts. So we got part 2 coming up of this, and Zim, just touch on, like, give people a taste of what is going to happen in part 2 of this.
So in part 2, we talked about Lyle. We talked about my ability to make cupcakes really well. I don't know if you guys know, after Joe was serving up cupcakes and crackers at his house, I'm now looking for some space in the Cincinnati area. If you're a sponsor, you want to get at me or something like that, you want to get this show Wincinnati, I'm really interested in cupcakes and crackers. And so we touch on cupcakes and crackers. More importantly, that takes over everything. But they did talk about, we talked to him about Lyle Collins. We talked to him about some good stuff, some good insight. I think a lot of people say, well, you guys don't, I don't know what people say, But I do know that us having the insight to be able to talk to Steven in this, and you all being able to sit here now to hear this right now directly from a guy that's in charge of that. Here we go.
So another obvious big guy that you guys ended up signing was Lyle Collins, right? Did you guys ever have any kind of trade talks with them, or was it just like, hey, let's just wait and see what's going to happen and wait for him to get released?
He was a guy that we had identified as possibly a cut or cap casualty there. So we had film work done on him before the news had broke up out of his release. We were hoping that he would shake free there in Dallas, and obviously Frank had the relationship with him, and when we were able to communicate with him, we were fortunate enough that we ended up getting him out here on a visit right away and making it happen. But he was a guy that we've always thought very highly of here as a player, so we're fortunate that we ended up getting him.
Prior to getting there, you talk about being fortunate to get him. Prior to getting him, a lot of the talk was about sending trade, like as a trade option for him, whatever. Was that like a discussion that was, there were other suitors, I'm sure. Like as we found out, like, the Dolphins and other teams were interested as well. Was trading an option for him at some point, or you all already had a focused plan on we're just going to let the cap casualty fall to us?
Yeah, we had those discussions, but there was nothing that we were planning to move on. I think we were all hoping that he would shake free for us.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of trades, just from your perspective as a scout, like this has been a crazy NFL offseason. Like, how has it been from your vantage point, seeing guys like Russell Wilson get traded, Tyreek Hill? Like, when you guys see something like that go across your line, is that something that you guys aren't familiar with? Like, you're just as shocked, or you kind of have a good idea that move was going to potentially happen?
No, I don't think we anticipated as many moves, especially with the quarterback spot as there have been. And obviously a lot of them went to the AFC, so it's going to be a tough spot to win. But it was a crazy offseason just to see all the moves, especially with the quarterback spot.
Yeah, it was like the NBA this season with the offseason. NFL offseason went crazy.
What do you think has changed? We were talking about this off air. What do you think has changed where you're now seeing more player-to-player trades going on in the NFL? Like, what has changed, like, I don't know, financially or whatever, to make these things like more they're happening more frequently?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have the answer to it. Like I said, there was just so much move. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one.
Going back to this, I did want to ask this. In the recruiting process, was Joe involved with the lot before he went? I've heard reports that they'll say like, hey, Joe just said, or Zach had said this at a press conference, that Joe was just like, hey, how can I help you guys or whatever. But I just want to know, like, is he a part of like the recruiting process, like for the free agency? And is he a part of the free agent? I mean, like the prospecting part of the draft as well?
Joe wanted to help out as much as he could during free agency, and he did a great job. I'm sure you guys all read the press clippings of him having all the guys at his house when they came out here. He had Hayden out, he had Lyle when Lyle was out here for a visit, and Kappa and Karras all over at his house for the cupcakes, I guess.
Why cupcakes? Why can't we get wings in there? Where are the fries? Where are the real food? We got to feed these guys, right?
I think he just wanted a casual environment, and I think a lot of those guys ended up feeling like at home. And but Joe does a great job with that, and we all went out to dinner with Kappa, Karras. The night that they were able to fly out here, we went to grab a steak with those guys. And Joe's just, he's got such a great personality, and I think a lot of those guys saw it. So, and with the draft, I think Joe's probably out training somewhere right now. So I haven't seen him since free agency.
Nah, the Joey B effect is for sure real, especially not even starting this offseason. The previous offseason, it seemed like that kind of uptick. As far as Hayden Hurst, he's one of the guys that I really like that you guys picked up. What was it about Hayden Hurst that attracted you guys? Because obviously CJ Uzama went to the Jets, but you guys went and got Hurst, and I really like that pick. But what drew your attention to him?
His athleticism, his ability to separate as a route runner, his speed, his run after catch. We just felt like he'd be a really good fit with Joe and the things that we were looking to do. We were looking for a receiving type tight end, and he's really had some bad luck just being in Baltimore and then in Atlanta where they drafted Pitts. So he's been in a room with a lot of good tight ends. He's an addition that we're really excited about, and I do think he's going to be productive with Joe and in our offense with the way Zach's going to use him. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a good get. I think we're all excited about him.
From a draft philosophy or strategy, we're seeing like the Bengals now getting linked, and I know you brought the kid Nick Eubanks in from the Cowboys. I just saw that yesterday as well. From a draft strategy, you've all been linked to McBride and guys like that. Is tight end something of interest that you think just as a security blanket, or is it something that you're looking for in the future for the Bengals? Like, what's the thought process on tight end going into?
I think we're going to look to try to add as many good players as we can at any spot. We're hopeful that we've set ourselves up to take the best player available in the draft when we're picking. I think we look to add at any spot that we can and get quality players at this point.
Yeah, this draft has kind of been all over the place depending on which position group you kind of look at. In your opinion, what would you say are some of like the strengths for the position groups and some of the weaknesses for them in this particular draft?
In this draft, there's some good edge players definitely in this draft. I do think there are some talented edge players and tackles. There's actually some good top tackles in this draft. I would say those are at least the ones that are sticking out to me right now. There's some quality safeties. I would say those are the ones that are sticking out at least right now.
It's a lot of really cool hybrid safety kind of tweener guys that we really, really love too. Well,
Yeah.
Steven, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. Thank you so much for your time. If you need any assistance in the recruiting process, you can always contact Wincinnati. I'm really good at baking cupcakes. I see you got the fantastic art in the background as well. You tell your young artists to make sure that they keep up the good work. I think we could bring that in there as a selling point as well. We need to leave no stone unturned.
Perfect. Sounds good. I'll let the kids know.
All right, man. You have a great one. We really appreciate your time. This is the Bengals Director of Pro Personnel, Steven Radicevic. And we just wrapping this bad boy up with Wincinnati.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Man, once again, shout out to Steven for taking the time out to do an interview with us. The importance of La'el Collins, though, like that was huge. And what were just your thoughts on how important it was for us to get him in the fold? He did mention that they did consider trading for him at one point, but they decided, they knew he was going to be a cap casualty. Just talk about the importance of bringing him into the fold.
I just think that it just takes our offensive line to a new level. I think before we went to the draft, before we went to free agency, we came on the show on Orange is the New Black, and I remember one time telling you, I was like, man, they got to have one elite, one dog, like one, where's your Joe Burrow of the offensive line? And I think La'el Collins, when he came in and he was just like, if they on my side, like I'm going to clear them out, like they just in the way, like he just was talking that talk. And when he did that, it just really opened up. Like, I was just like, bro, he about to make everybody that's down on Jonah, everybody that's down on like Carmen or like, like all these different players that I know are really, really talented. When you get a La'el Collins on your team, like it just forces everybody's play to step it up a whole nother notch. If you've ever been part of a team when you're in a position group and there's one guy killing him like that, and he's that much of an alpha that I could tell from La'el Collins' interviews is different than like AJ Green, where he's a little quiet and he kind of leads by example. That works too. But the way that La'el Collins is, the dog that we needed up front, I just think that's really going to translate. I think DJ Reader is the equivalent to that on our defensive line. So it's like he's more for the locker room, and then on top of it, from a play calling standpoint and the run game, I'm just so excited about what La'el Collins brings to the team, and the fact that we didn't do anything, we didn't trade anything to get him, and they considered it. That was a big thing.
And he said that they've been a fan of La'el Collins. This is a guy that's looking all around the league, determining who gets in there. And we talked about crackers and cupcakes, but we got to get him down. We got to get our friend La'el Collins down to Midwest Best Barbecue over in Loveland, 669 Justice Court. We got to get him some of those brisket fries. We got to get some of those Grippo wings in there. The Uno wings, we got to get him to get some of those Uno wings with that dry rub as well. But make sure you guys check out Midwest Best Barbecue. They are a top-notch restaurant in Cincinnati. They got the creamery going on, so you can get your ice cream on as well. Once again, that's Midwest Best Barbecue in Loveland.
Let's make a quick.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Joe Burrow was pumped up off the Midwest Barbecue wings, wasn't he?
He was hyped. He was like, let's go get some of those Grippo wings.
Hey, look, let's make a quick bet. If La'el Collins, if we talk to La'el Collins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we asked him, if I were to ask you right now, how many wings do you think that La'el Collins could clear at Midwest Barbecue? What's the number that you think he would say?
I think he could do a good. I think he could do 30. I wanted to say
30?
40, but I think he's doing 30, like with no problem.
I'm gonna take the over on 30.
The over, okay. We're gonna have to get him on the show. We gotta take on the Midwest. We gotta make this a thing. If anybody can help us get in touch with La'el, we gotta make this happen.
I think we got some ways to get in touch.
Get some charities involved, raise some money for the city. If anybody is watching this, that is something that we could possibly pull off.
But before the season, I'm pretty sure, like when we get into the season, probably, you got to get your diet together and everything like that. But as far as like all season, if I were to ask him, I know he's going over 30. I could go if I'm starving, bro. I can give you 20.
Facts. So let me ask you about this though. The draft, value by round. Who are some of the values that you, and that's a value, right? You getting the La'el over 30 wings.
They said Vegas has the over at 31 and a half. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nah, you good. Who's the best value prospects by round?
From position groups.
I think we talked about Ojabo. We know that Ojabo is one of the values, right? Do you think McBride is a value?
Bro,
like
every time I do a mock, I always come back to safety or tight end in the second. I just started doing mocks this week. I'm gonna tell you another position, and if Chris Evans wasn't sitting right there, I just think like, bro, the second and the third round are gonna have some really, really good running backs. Like Breece Hall and guys like that in the second will be there. So like, are we talking about like just straight up position groups? Like it just sucks that the Bengals, like our good buddy John Sheeran said the Bengals should draft like it's not all in. I think from an emotional standpoint, it would signal to players on the team that we're about to replace you. So Joe Mixon wouldn't like a Breece Hall, like, whatever. But bro, like every time I do a mock, I just feel like you always look at tight end, safety, and running back in that second. I get to the third, I always look at Kobe Bryant and I look at all these corners. Then I get to the fourth, that's when I start looking at the punter, but I know I can't take him. But then at fourth, it's like a free for all, and I'm like, well, let me trade back. And that when we were talking about that on that episode, let me trade back. Then I go get Ariza in the back of the, like in the in the top of the fifth. In the top of the fifth. And I just feel like the Bengals just have like a weird luxury, not weird, but like a crazy luxury.
One dude that we talked about before the show earlier was like Justin Ross. Like this is a guy that comes at a value. We talked about him kind of being the Derek Stingley, and you said that, and my man Tony said that on the AFC North side. He's like the Derek Stingley wide receiver. So potentially to get a guy that, was widely considered one of the top receivers of this class a few years ago, at maybe the third, fourth round, that is a steal. So there's a lot of different places that they could go.
Calvin Austin and Royal Flush just said Calvin Austin III. I've been screaming that forever because I keep on playing that soundbite of Darren Simmons talking about we want somebody with the fear of God to be like, back there. But Justin Ross, if you all don't know, like in 2019 was neck and neck with Jamar Chase as a prospect. Now injuries and all these different things have happened. If Justin Ross is still there later, like a lot of these mocks have him as the 8th, 9th, 10th ranked wide receiver. If he's anywhere around the 3rd, 4th, I'm taking that. Like he's really good.
Is it Perion Winfrey? What about him? And like
he keeps on going
round,
second. Yeah,
second,
for sure.
Round.
One thing that I keep on going back to is the Bengals historically don't take D tackles early. So early on in this process, I kept on saying Devontae White, the kid from Connecticut, like all these different guys. I don't even see the Bengals actually going second because there's so many dudes that kind of have the ability to do 3-tech type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's so many different DJ Reader backups. There's so many different like guys that I really like in that 3rd. And I think that's where the Bengals go after it.
Facts. So Zim, there's something that you wanted to show us. There's something pertaining into a little roughhousing, something like that. That you wanted to share with the people of Cincinnati.
Man, I was just going across this, and I don't know if you all seen this, but this was earlier. I'm not going to play it. I was going to play the audio for it, but I think it'll take too much time. We got to wrap it up. But I was playing a show where Patrick Queen was on there, and the show is called Mic'd Up with Mikey Maddock. But if you guys get a chance, I'll retweet it on my Twitter. I think Ace is retweeted on his Twitter as well. His Twitter, New Stripe City. Make sure you guys follow him on there. But on there, they're telling a story about how Joe Burrow actually punches him. And then they ended up like jumping him like in the practice. And Coach O, how Coach O doesn't like kick these dudes off the team for that. Like, you're a quarterback, bro? Like, I don't know. I just thought it was crazy. But I just feel like Joe Burrow is like a religion at this point. Like, I feel like if you do some gangster stuff, you put on some Cartier glasses, if you walk into a fine dining with sweatpants, like, bro, he is so lit. Like,
walking into PBS with the Migos shirt on, like,
bro, he throwing punches. He got pictures with Jamar with gang signs. Like, what doesn't he do? Like, at this point, bro, now I'm at this point, go Tigers. At this point, like, I'm just like, Joe Burrow's a whole religion. Like, if you do something cool tomorrow, you're just gonna be like, yeah, I'm on my Joe Burrow stuff. Like, right. Period. Like, everything that he does is just so lit, bro. Like, I mean, I'm going to go to fine dining this weekend, and I'm not putting on no good clothes. I'm going to walk in there with my chain. I'm going to come in there with my sweatpants on, and I'm going to be like, if they try to stop me, I'm going to be like, bro, I know Joe Burrow.
Facts. It's going to be the legend of Joe Burrow for sure. Well, that concludes today's show. We appreciate you guys for tapping in. That's going to be the first week of shows. Stay tuned for next week because you never know what surprises that we might have. So we appreciate you guys for rocking with Cincinnati. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leave us some comments. Let me know what you guys thought about what Mr. Stevens said about some of the moves that the Bengals made, and let us know in the comments who you'd like to see on the show. We'd like to hear from you guys some suggestions that we could bring on the show, but definitely be sure to subscribe to the Cincinnati YouTube channel because after a while, after we do a couple of shows, we are no longer going to broadcast from Zim's Twitter, my YouTube channel. The exclusive place for you to find our Cincinnati content will be on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening, obviously we're going to be in the podcast store. So make sure you give us those 5-star reviews. We need those. We need that support. And we're going to be doing some giveaways too with that. So definitely be sure to hit that 5-star review. And we're on any kind of podcast syndicate that you can find us on. Thank you guys for tuning in to Cincinnati. Yes.
Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Hushmanzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
Exciting time to be a Bengals
How do you
fan.
balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time, man.
Yeah.
Shock the world.